footing a year ago. And now in the last couple of weeks, the footing is definitely unsteady.
However, they acknowledge they're not going to go rogue here and go against the governor's wishes. In fact, yesterday they voted on a resolution to basically comply with Hochul's request for a pause. But they were also clear that they're very much in favor of congestion pricing, and they want to make sure that the MTA is ready to go with the tolling equipment and the plans to spend the money for the day that it is implemented.
All right. So what did public transit advocates have to say?
Well, it was a real scene, David. They showed up in record numbers at MTA headquarters yesterday. There was a line around the building. Over 140 people signed up to speak. Most of them opposed Hochul's move, and that was a record number for public speakers. A lot of them spoke like Hassan Quasi. He's with the group Riders Alliance, and he was actually saying he suffers from asthma.
I have a right to cleaner air, which CBD tolling will provide. I have a right to better outer-borough transit connectivity through projects like the Interborough Express, which CBD toll revenue will in part provide the capital money for.
So yeah, that's not going to happen for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's talk about Hochul's response. What does she have to say?
Well, she put out a statement during this board meeting in which she basically said she's committed to the MTA. She acknowledged that some of these projects would be deferred, but she said, quote, there is no reason for New Yorkers to be concerned that it would eventually get done. But remember, the tolls are going to raise, the $15 daily toll was going to raise, $1 billion a year, which the MTA was going to use to generate bonds to pay for all that stuff that we talked about. And she was worried about the fragile Manhattan post-COVID recovery. So she remains committed to her pause, but the MTA says it will be ready for when it is unpaused. And the chair of the MTA says there's no shelf life for those projects, meaning, but the longer you wait for them with inflation, the more expensive they will get.
WNYC, Stephen Nesson. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
WNYC supporters include Michaelman & Robinson, LLP, a full-service national law firm dedicated to its representation of clients across industries. More information at mrllp.com.
The Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and stay with us for the BBC NewsHour coming up at 9 o'clock. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. Hello, BBC.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Paul Henley. On today's NewsHour, the latest on what looks like an attempted coup in Bolivia and how the BBC tracked down a migrant smuggler on the run in Europe. That's BBC NewsHour coming up at 9 on WNYC.
68 degrees. It's going to be mostly sunny today with a high of 86 this afternoon. Tomorrow, sunny skies with a high of just 78. This is WNYC.
When greasing palms is A-OK.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, helping provide a smarter, easier way to get the supplies businesses need to thrive. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.
I'm David Brancaccio. More now on the Supreme Court saying it is not against the law for contractors to give tips, cadeau, bakshish, or heartfelt charitable donations to state and local officials, just a token of our esteem. In a 6-3 ruling yesterday, the High Court narrowed the scope of federal corruption law, finding a former mayor in Indiana did no wrong when he took $13,000 as a consulting fee after giving a city contract to a trucking company. But the parties need to get their timing right. Marketplace's Nova Safo has details.
The Supreme Court's decision hinged on three definitions, those for bribes, gratuities, and what it means to corruptly accept money. The court's 6 conservative justices sided with former Mayor James Snyder, who said the $13,000 he accepted from a city contractor was legitimately earned for consulting work. He was convicted of bribery, but in reversing that, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, writing for the majority, said a key difference was that the money was paid out after, not before, the contracts were awarded. He said Congress could have written a stricter law, but the one in question made exceptions for legitimate work outside of government, which many local and state officials engage in. In a dissent, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said the ruling ignored Congress's intent to root out public corruption. Notably, Congress set comprehensive prohibitions against bribes or gratuities given to federal officials. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
Nike releases its quarterly results this afternoon. Sportswear is huge and growing worldwide, but Nike and the older guard of the industry may not be at the forefront of the growth. Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman explains.
It's a pretty good time to be in the sportswear business. Participation in women's sports is growing, and Jessica Ramirez with Jane Holly and Associates says dress codes have loosened.
We entered a comfort zone in terms of trend quite some years ago.
Honestly, I'm reporting from home in athletic shorts right now. But industry titans like Nike aren't taking any victory laps. Ramirez says cool young upstarts are chasing them down. Think Hoka, Lululemon, and On Running.
So everyone's out to get a piece of the sneaker business.
And some consumers may see Nike as a dinosaur brand, says Neil Saunders with Global Data.
It's still the undoubted leader in market share terms, but in terms of the growth profile, Nike's performance can best be described as lackluster.
Nike could win some shine back at the Olympics next month. LeBron James and Team USA will be shooting for gold with the Nike swoosh on their jerseys.
It will be a very visible part of the Olympics. It always is.
Problem is, those upstart brands will be marketing at the games too. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
Markets S&P futures are down less than 0.1%. NASDAQ futures are down 0.1%. Stock and chipmaker Micron is down 5% in pre-market trading right now after it forecast high sales for the quarter, but not as high as investors wanted amid an artificial intelligence boom.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab knows that investors want control of their financial future. That's why when it comes to wealth management, Schwab is dedicated to giving investors more choices. More at schwab.com. And by UKG. UKG is a partner that delivers HR, pay, time, and culture solutions designed to help build a great workplace for everyone. UKG, our purpose is people.
Social Security, politicians are warned, touch it, and it's deadly to a career, which leads to the third rail metaphor, right? The program's accounting is doing okay for now, but the latest projections point to benefit cuts in 2035 unless Congress takes some action. Most agree the program needs a fix, even if they can't agree on what the solution would be. Marketplace's Kimberly Adams has this update.
On the campaign trail, the messaging about Social Security is pretty straightforward. I'll manage it better than the other guy.
I will always protect Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump said cuts to Social Security and Medicare are on the table.
But snappy lines at campaign rallies mask the complexities of the issue, says Romina Baccia at the Cato Institute.
I think there's a real difficulty in talking about Social Security because there's been so much storytelling and there's so many myths out there about how the program works.
Already, the system is paying out more in benefits than it brings in payroll taxes. Part of that is due to the combo of lower birth rates and an aging population. Another reason is growing income inequality. There's a cap on the income that's taxed for Social Security, so Americans who earn the most and their employers only pay Social Security taxes on the first $169,000 or so of income. Stephen Goss, the chief actuary of the Social Security Administration, laid this out for members of Congress earlier this month.
The earnings of the top 6% of workers whose earnings exceed the taxable maximum level under Social Security unexpectedly grew considerably faster than for the other 94% of workers.
Back in the 1980s, about 90% of Americans' total earnings were taxed for Social Security. That dropped to 82% by the year 2000 and has been going down ever since. The program covers the difference between the taxes that come in and the benefits that go out by tapping its trust fund, which consists of past Social Security surpluses invested in Treasury bonds. But
there is a problem 10 or 11 years down the road when the reserve, the trust fund, will be used up, and all that will be left is current payroll taxes.
And that will mean benefit cuts, says Max Richman, president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare.
People will be getting 86, 87% of their benefits. And we don't want that. We want full benefits.
And that's where things get tough. By law, Social Security can't take on any debt or tap into general revenues. So Congress needs to do something before the money runs out, says Romina Baccia at Cato.
Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet to fixing Social Security that doesn't involve some form of tax increase and some form of benefit cuts, which is why I think it's so important to have an honest conversation.
But those kinds of honest conversations are hard to find anywhere in this town. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
And the cost of a 4th of July cookout for 10 people will be either 5% higher this year or 2% higher, depending on whether it's the Farm Bureau's higher calculation or Rabobank's lower calculation. Ground beef is up 11%, chicken down 4%. Wages in America are up 4% in the last year. I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.
Support for WNYC comes from Optimum Business, offering business fiber with speeds up to 8 gig. More information is available at 855-2-OPTIMUM or at optimum.com/business.
The BBC News Hour is coming up next here on WNYC. And stay with us for the Brian Lehrer Show at 10 o'clock. Today on the show, legal analysis of the latest Supreme Court news and what's left on the list of important outstanding decisions, plus a preview of the first presidential debate. That's all coming up on the Brian Lehrer Show this morning at 10 o'clock here on WNYC. Right now, 70 degrees. We're expecting a high of 86 today with mostly sunny skies. Tonight it stays mostly clear, a low of 66. Tomorrow, sunny with a high of 78. It's 9 o'clock.
This is WNYC, FM, HD, and AM, New York.
Welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. I'm Paul Henley. There seems to have been an attempted military coup in Bolivia. We hear from a journalist in La Paz.
We are living an economic crisis. There are no dollars, there's no gasoline, but we weren't expecting military movements. It was a surprise for us.
But was what happened a setup to boost support for the president? The BBC tracks down a man thought to be behind deadly trips for migrants across the English Channel.
It turns out he's not in Belgium anymore. Worried about being arrested, he's on the run. And we're in pursuit.
And the new evidence that the very earliest Neanderthal humans